Very much so.
Good, good, good.
My father was a very particular guy. I'll give you something which we don't have to. I have a copy of a letter that he sent to the Jewish congregation of Amsterdam that he's of age and he might pass on. And then he tells the congregation, he tells these people that he doesn't want to have any women on the graveside. He doesn't want to have any flowers. No, listen to this. He doesn't want to have any flowers. He wants to have a minion over there. And then he says that he doesn't want to have, I'm not going to tell you his last name, but a specific guy who was standing next to him in synagogue. He didn't want him to come to his funeral.
Oh, my goodness.
Is that...
That's crazy. Tell me what you can about what Howard told you.
Howard told me that, let me think for a second. I'm jumping.
We're ready when you
Oh, okay.
We're not recording yet.
Oh, yeah. Does he say you have to pay back or no?
He says, send all the information with your expenses and let them figure it out. He says he's heard that before.
Oh, okay.
I'm not the first one.
Okay.
I found that out in the Netherlands too. In fact, I get a monthly newspaper from them.
Yeah.
And in that little newspaper that I got last week, they tell me that they reassessed and that certain people will have to pay back the money. I have a whole article.
Let him go chase him, right?
Really. You know that what I do have to do, what he also thought would be a smart thing, that I put my house in my wife's name only.
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're ready.
All right, sir, if you will hold this, and Ms. Barber's going to read that, and then I'll take it from you. And we are rolling.
Today is September 13th, 2023. I'm here to interview Herman Veder, V-E-D-E-R. My name is Barbara Beyer. We're in West Palm Beach, Florida at UPC Studios. Can you please tell me your name?
My name is Herman Joseph Veder.
Can you spell it?
Herman, Joseph, Joseph Veder.
And what was your full name at birth?
My full name of birth was Herman Joseph Louis Veder.
And your date of birth?
I was born in 1936, the 24th of July, at 6 a.m.
And how old are you now?
I'm 87 years of age.
Where were you born, Mr. Veder?
I was born in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
And what was your mother's name?
Lucretia Juliana Druyf,
Spell the last name, please.
D-R-U-Y-F.
And where was your mother born?
My mother was born in the Netherlands, in the city of Groningen,
Can you spell that?
Groningen.
And do you recall her date of birth?
September 19th. I do not recall the year.
Do you recall how old she was when she passed away?
Probably 61.
And when was that?
That's many years ago.
What was your mother's occupation?
She was taking care of her two children. I had a brother and myself, and that was her occupation.
And your brother's name?
Was Abraham, but they called him Bob Veder.
And when was he born?
He was 6 years older than I am. He was born in 1931, in February the 8th, I believe.
And is he still alive today?
No, he's not with us anymore.
And when was his date of death? Approximately, if you can.
It was about 10 years ago now, so, but I do not recall that.
Can you describe your mother's personality?
She was a very sweet mother. She was always very nice to me, and was always concerned about, I think I was her favorite child. But my parents got divorced when I was 21, and she said to me, I've done what I needed to do, and I cannot handle your father any longer.
What was your father's full name?
Alexander Henry Veder,
And where was your father born?
in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
And do you recall his date of birth?
It was September, I think it's the 27th, but the year I do not know.
What was your father's occupation?
My father's occupation actually was, he was first in the military for many years that I know of. And then his father, my grandfather, bought a knitting mill factory near Amsterdam. And my father started to work at that place until the Germans threw them both out.
What was the name of the business?
ATEK.
Can you spell that?
Yes, ATEK.
And what military was your father
In the Dutch military.
in? How many employees were in the ATEC knitting mill?
About 200.
How many of those employees were Jewish?
That I know of, only one.
And the rest were?
Nice people, very nice people. They did a lot of good work for the Jewish people during the World War.
Describe your father's personality.
He was extremely strict for others, and for himself, he wasn't so strict.
In what way?
He had a lot of girlfriends during the years.
So tell me about your brother. You told me they called him Bob.
Yes.
Tell me about him.
Bob, I've been very fortunate that I was always a little bit different than he was. I was doing sports. I was very good in those sports. I would be in the newspapers on a weekly basis. And when he started getting a little bit older, Bob would like to be Herman. And that gave some family problems.
Tell me about what kind of sports you played.
I started racing cars.
And at what age?
I started this when I was 21. And that was in Europe. I was working for the racing division of Fiat in Italy for a while. I was also for a while working for a company in Austria, and I've traveled many circuits in Europe.
So you mentioned that you were 21, so this is after the war.
Definitely.
Tell me about the sports before the war.
There were no sports. There was too much confusion and too much difficult times. It was not, I really didn't have the time to do sports. We traveled during the wartime throughout the world, and every time we had to move to another country, or so I had to learn languages. I never did go to school in that time. And so when the war was over, I ended up in school in Amsterdam, but I was not successful over there because I beat up the teacher in the class.
Okay.
And
We'll get to that, okay?
good.
Tell me about your mother's parents, your grandparents.
They were very lovely people. My grandpa, his name was also Herman, in 1942 committed suicide because he didn't want to be under the German rulings. My grandmother survived the war, and she was there. She was hidden in the Netherlands, and when we came back from our journey, she was there, and we lived with her for a while in 1946.
How was she hidden?
She was hidden in a farm in the northern part of the Netherlands.
Do you recall the name of the town?
No, I don't.
Okay. Tell me about your father's parents.
My father's parents, my grandfather, he told my father that he was not going to try to escape because this war would only be for a short time, and he didn't see the reason why to leave. They were arrested and ended up in Westerbork, in concentration camp, where he died, and my grandmother died after it was liberated. They ate too much.
And tell me about what you remember of your grandfather when you were a youngster.
I would see him both grandfathers, I would see every Saturday. We would go over to the house where they lived. And there was a big walk because my father was a very Orthodox Jew, and so we had to walk for miles every Saturday.
Tell me about his home.
My grandfather lived on one of the canals in Amsterdam, very close to downtown Amsterdam, in one of the more expensive parts of Amsterdam. And they had 3 children, 2 daughters, and my father and 1 son. The oldest daughter got ill and died before World War II. The other one, Vera, she was hidden during the war somewhere in the Netherlands. Her husband died in a concentration camp, and one of the children was very small, and the other one was about 6 years difference with me, but she's not with us anymore. She's not living anymore.
What was the aunt that survived? What was her last name?
Veder. It used to be Boekdrukker. That was her name of her husband.
How religious were your grandparents?
My grandparents were very religious. My grandfather was the Parnas in the big synagogue of Amsterdam, which is still existing, and today that building is the Jewish Museum of the Netherlands.
How long was he involved with the synagogue?
He was involved as long as I remember for many, many years. He was also on the board of directors of the Jewish organizations in Amsterdam, who had 60,000 Jewish people living there before World War II.
What other aunts, uncles, and cousins do you recall?
I don't recall too much.
How many members approximately were in your entire family?
About 30.
How many survived the war?
5, 6.
And where did you live? You told me your grandfather lived on the canal. Where did you live?
I lived in the southern part of Amsterdam in an apartment that my dad rented, and I was born over there. I was never born in a hospital. I was born at home.
Do you recall the address?
Absolutely. It's a famous painter's name, Albrecht Dürer Street, number 1.
And describe the apartment.
It had 2 floors. You first had to walk up outside, before you would reach the front door. And then if the door would open, you had to go up a couple of stairs to go to the downstairs. And then there was also an upstairs. There were 3, 4 bedrooms, kitchen, living room, and dining room. The house is still existing and it's rented out.
Did you share a room with your brother?
Yes, I did.
And how was that?
That was okay. There was no problem.
Who were your neighbors?
At Amsterdam?
In Amsterdam when you were young.
I do not recall. Yes, I do recall. Their name, they came from Germany. They were Jewish people, and their last name was Engel, E-N-G-E-L.
And what happened to them?
They moved, and I do not know.
What was the relationship between the Jews and the non-Jews in Amsterdam?
It was pretty good, yes. Actually, yes. My parents had very good non-Jewish friends in the city of Haarlem. And these people helped us escape all the way to Belgium once
Who were they?
He was working in, I believe, the post office in the city of Haarlem.
And what was his name?
I don't remember.
Tell me about the holidays in your early life. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur.
Absolutely, that was always done. My father would give the Seder, and the Seder would never end. He would do it, and it would take about 4 or 5 hours before it was finished. I used to go to synagogue daily, twice a day, in the morning and in the evening, except at Shabbat I would have to go 3 times. So I was taught to be a very orthodox, but it became too much for me. So I still do holidays, but definitely not the way my dad wanted me to be.
And the other holidays, how were they celebrated?
Everything was celebrated. Every part of any holiday was done, and I got Hebrew lessons from the #1 rabbi in Amsterdam. The guy had to come every Saturday to study with me things I did not enjoy very much.
Well, since the war was over before you were 13, were you ever bar mitzvah?
Yes, I was bar mitzvah.
And where
I was
it?
bar mitzvah in Amsterdam. Yes.
And what year?
Well, I was 13 years, so but I born 20. I'm born 36, so I was age 50. Yeah.
49. Okay. Can you describe the synagogue?
Absolutely. The synagogue still exists today and is at the Jacob Obrecht Street, near where we lived in Amsterdam, in the southern part. Yes.
Describe it.
Well, it was a big synagogue. It could hold maybe 300-400 people. And it was very orthodox. And but it was extremely strict. I know that on Yom Kippur, my father would stand the whole day, and he wanted me to be also standing there, never sit down.
Who was the rabbi at that time?
Oh, Rabbi, my goodness. I can see the man right in front of me. I don't, maybe I'll think about it later and I'll give you, Schuster. Rabbi Schuster, he was the #1 rabbi in Amsterdam of the 6 or 7 that were there, yes.
And what was his fate? His fate. Did he survive the war?
He did survive the war, but how, I do not know.
Describe him as a person.
A very nice, gentle person. I'm sure that today, if I would Google him, I would find him back, but I've never done this.
Tell me about your friends as a youngster.
I do not recall. There was so much commotion when I was really young, and I don't have to remember that the war broke out when I was 5 years, and we left when I was just turning 7. So in that time, there was too much going on. So I never went to school at that time either.
What do you remember of what was going on?
Well, the eyes opened up for me really loud and clear because a German airplane dropped a bomb near where we lived. And part of the entrance, the steps of the entrance of that building, it was a school, flew over a house and landed in our front, through the balcony door into our home. So that was the start for me to understand that there was something going on really bad.
Describe how you felt.
Terrible. You feel terrible. You don't know. And then I heard my father tell my mother at that time, because he just came back, he was in the service and he was fighting with the army against the Germans in the city of Rotterdam. But that took only a couple of days before that ended.
You mentioned a little while ago that you had to learn several languages.
Yes.
What languages?
Well, we first had to stay, when we made it to France, and when we were imprisoned in France, nobody spoke Dutch. So for the little bit I was there in that place, I had to start French. When that was finished, we went and did a tour through Portugal, but there I never was long enough over there to speak Portuguese. Then we went to Suriname in Dutch Guyana, and I know a little bit of the language over there, which is called Taki-Taki. And after that, in 1943, in the end of 43, I came to the United States and had to learn English. So in the meantime, you know, speaking Dutch is not something that you can use in the world, so you got to learn everything. But I did learn all of this because I traveled to these countries so much. I also speak fluent Italian and fluent German, so I speak 5 languages.
Describe yourself as a child.
I must have been a very difficult child. Through everything that went on after the bombardment, and then things were difficult for me. We have walked through woods where guns were going off and bullets were flying over our heads. We had to cross a river where I almost drowned. I ate a rabbit feces, and it probably gave me typhoid. I was very ill and almost died. After the war, I had to see a children's psychologist and psychiatrist. I would think that today it's called PTSD, and I think I still have that. I can get very quickly changed and very uncomfortable. Can be very uncomfortable, but that's part of the deal.
Do you feel that the psychologist and the psychiatrist helped you at all?
I don't think so. They knew that when I was 14, they told my parents, take him out of school and let him learn a trade. It's better for him. And I did. And I worked in that factory I talked about before.
Let's go to a little happier days. How did you celebrate your birthday when you were young?
We always had a party. My mother always made sure that there was a party.
And who was there?
Other kids, neighbors.
Was there anybody special that you remember specifically?
No, because I don't recall, the first couple of years of your life. I don't remember, no. And family after World War II, there was hardly any family left, so.
What lasting morals and values did your parents teach you that you should remember in your lifetime?
When you go right, you cannot go wrong. And that is something I have been telling other people for my whole life, because it keeps you on track.
Anything else that you can recall?
No.
What anti-Semitism did you experience in Amsterdam before the war?
Before the war, I don't think there was so much. After the war, all of a sudden everybody was okay, but that was after the fact. Then the truth came out that there was so much during the war that happened in the Netherlands, and the percentage of anti-Semitism in the Netherlands was enormous. And today still people think that it was beautiful and the best people in the world, but the truth is different.
And how do you know that?
I know that from other Jewish people that I have met in my life, and that also have did the same kind of interview as I'm doing right now for Shoah, and how upset they were about the Jewish or the non-Jewish organizations and people in the Netherlands and governmental.
Other than the bomb falling near your home, near your apartment, what did you know about Hitler and Nazism?
Not too much. I only knew that when we left, that I was not allowed to talk at all. In fact, I was on a train, the first train to the Belgian border, where I was sitting on the lap of my mom, and I remember this. The train was full of German SS military people, and my mother kept for 2 hours her hand over my mouth, not to say a word, because she was afraid that they would find out that we were Jewish, and we would be arrested immediately.
Where was the train going?
The train was going from the Netherlands to the Belgian border, and there we had to go on another train.
How did you get permission to get on the train?
There was what they called a line of people that would bring us over the border. They needed to be paid. My parents paid an awful lot of money for this. And then it finally ended up that it was fraud. And all of a sudden, there was nobody. All the money was gone, everything was gone.
How did you find out who these people were to take you to the train?
They would be on a station, and they would have a little red flag in their hands. But we ended up in France in a train that stopped in a small town between the free France and the occupied France. And that's where the problems really started for us.
What happened to the family business and all the assets when you were forced to leave?
The Germans came in, threw my grandfather and my father out of the business. And this guy apparently had a knitting mill in Germany, so he knew what to do. And they did some work during the wartime, but the rest I don't know what this guy and how he ran the business. Only when my father came back, he and his sister inherited the place, and my father, when he came out of the army, started up this business again, where I later worked.
And what happened to all the finances that were in the business?
Everything was stolen. Everything was gone. There was zero money.
And how did you get money to get on the train, even though it was confiscated?
We got on the train because that escape line, they had tickets for the train. And that was it. But for the rest, nothing. We ended up on the station I got to look for a second, in Vierzon-Bourneuf, which is in France, that is on the border between liberated or not free France and the other France. And everybody had to get out of the train and stand in line, and the Germans at that moment wanted to see who all these people were. My father and mother and my brother and myself went over the tracks to another possibility to stand, and we stood there until everybody was gone, but it was late at night. It was 10 o'clock in the evening when we were standing on the station with no train and nobody there. So my father asked someone if there was a church close by, and there was. And so we walked to that church, and my father knocked on the door of the church. It was a Catholic church, and the priest came and looked at us and said, "I do not want to know what happened to you. Come in. You have to leave at 5 o'clock in the morning because the Germans will be in this church later on that day."
Do you recall the name of the priest?
No, I do not.
Was there a name on the church?
The church still exists today, yes.
Can you spell the name of the town?
Vierzon, Vierzon. And the last name is Bourneuf, Bourneuf.
And what is that?
It's the name of the town, and it's on a river, the Cher River, Cher.
I wanted to ask you before we continue, did anybody else live in the house with you beside your mother, father, and your brother?
No. But on the train, an aunt of mine and her son were with us. And like all of us, we tried to get to Switzerland, but that didn't work.
Your aunt's name and your cousin's name? Your aunt's name and
My
cousin?
Clara, Clara, Van der Ziel, VANDERZIEL.
And her son?
Glenn, Glen. He is not there anymore. He used to live in the United States.
They both survived the war?
Them two, yes. She had another son, but he was shot by the Germans in Amsterdam.
And what was his name?
I don't recall.
How did your parents decide to get on that train? And what were the circumstances that led them?
Well, my mother had a brother who took the same route, so he told my parents what to do. But they got stuck over there on that train over there in the same, and were arrested and ended up in a concentration camp in Mauthausen, I believe.
And what was his name?
Droof, last name, yeah.
First name?
I don't remember.
What were you able to take with you when you left for the train?
Nothing.
So now this priest let you into
The church, yes. We slept in the church that night. And in the morning, there were two ladies that came to that church to talk to my parents, and they were part of the Red Cross. And they told my parents, you cannot stay here because this is very dangerous terrain. Tonight, you have to go to the other side of the Cher River that runs through our village. And there is a bridge, but that bridge, on the bridge are German soldiers with guns. So they will be able to spot people that are trying to go to the other side. But you have no other alternative. When you go at night, and you will see a home on the other side of the Cher River, if you see somebody lighting a cigarette, it means that you can go in the water and get to the other side. If you don't see them lighting a cigarette, don't do it, because they'll shoot you. And that's what happened over there. So we had to go through the water, and I fell off my father's, he was holding me, and I must have, I don't know, been eating that rabbit stuff because I started getting really, really sick, very ill. But we made it to the other side and were immediately taken into a house where we got dry clothes because everything was soaking wet and we had nothing with us. And
Who were the people in the house?
they were people that were helping Jewish people to get away from this disaster over there. French people.
On the other side of the river, was it a different town? Did it have a different name?
Same town. But there were no Germans over there. They hadn't gone to that part yet. So they told us, and they made sure that we were able to get, it was the Red Cross to take us and told us how to get to Lyon. Because if we would get to Lyon in France, then the possibility would be there maybe to get to Switzerland.
How far was it?
There was again a train ride. Must have been about 3-4 hours in the train. But that went all pretty okay. However, in Lyon, we had to go and stay in a hotel. And apparently there was still some money over there. And we stayed in the hotel. And that same night, the Germans came to the hotel and arrested anybody that was there in that hotel, including us. My aunt and her son were in another hotel and made it to Switzerland. We did not. We were arrested and we were incarcerated in Lyon.
And then what happened?
And then what happened was that we had to, my father told them that we were not Jewish. And he said, prove that to us. What is your name? And then my father said, my name is Alexander. Oh, Alexander the Great, yeah, he was not Jewish and things like that. So they kind of believed it somewhat. However, at the same time that we were incarcerated, and I was not with my parents anymore. We were all split up in different cells. And it was a very bad situation.
In what way?
Because I was without parents, and I was there with it was a cell, a very small cell, but there were 36 or 38 men in there.
Your brother as well?
No, we were all separated. And every afternoon we had to come out of the cell and they would call names, and those people with those names, they had to step forward, and they were sent to Auschwitz from there. What we did not know is that there was a Dutch Jewish guy by the name of Sally Nowak who falsified papers of people that were in this prison. And he was originally also, he was a Jewish guy and did this on his own and told the Germans that he was the consulate general for the Netherlands or something, and these people are not Jewish, so you got to leave them out. And they falsified papers, and it says on these papers that we were Protestants, Calvinists. And with these peoples, we were able to get out of the hands of the Germans, but we had to stay in France. They had, without paperwork, without passports, nothing, everything was taken, and we had to go to a little village not too far away from Lyon, and had to go to the police. My father had to go to the police station on a daily basis to see that we were still there.
How did Sally Noah select you and your family to falsify your papers?
He got a list because he told the Germans that he wanted to see the list of the people that were Dutch that were in that jail over there. And then at the consulate, the real consulate in Lyon, they falsified these papers with the pictures and everything else, and they were able to wipe out that we were Jewish, and all of a sudden it stated that we were Calvinists.
So I know that the way the Germans identified Jewish men was to have them drop their pants. At any time, were you in danger of doing that?
I've never had anything like that happen to me.
So then what happened after you got your false papers?
We went to a little town called Marcol-les-Eaux,
Spell that. Can you spell it? Marcolleaux. And that is where one day my father went to the police station and he saw that our passports were on the table with the police, and the police didn't look at my father. So my father grabbed the passports, came back where we were staying, and told the lady where we were staying in her house that he had the passports, and she says, then I will help you to get out of here, because a couple of miles away or kilometers away are the Germans controlling the roads. And she took her horse and a buggy, and she put us in there, and she rode with us through that line, and we got to the other side. So who was with you?
My brother, my father, and my mother.
And who was this lady?
She was a beautiful lady. I do not recall her name, but she helped us so much. My father, until she passed away, always had contact with her also after the war, of course.
So now she takes you with a horse and buggy
to a place not too far away from the French-Spanish border. but there's big mountains over there. So a part of the mountains we had to walk. And
Tell me about that.
it was days of walking until we finally got into a train to go to Madrid through the Dutch embassy in Lyon, also through NOAC. We had some money to buy tickets. And NOAC always told my parents, try to get to Lisbon, try to get to Portugal.
How did you know where to go over these mountains to get to a destination?
My father asked people how to go and where the next station was.
You mentioned also that you were very sick with typhoid.
Yes.
How were you cured?
I got that because my father showed me how to pick blackberries or blueberries, but I ate rabbit feces, and they had to get a doctor. They found some doctor somewhere, and my fever was enormous, and but he gave me something or whatever it was. It helped, and I'm still alive. So whatever he gave me, it was okay.
Okay, so now you're over the mountains, and what happened then?
Then we were able to catch a train to go to Madrid. And in Madrid, again, it was the Dutch consulate that helped us, again, with some money to get to Portugal, because in Portugal was neutral, and it was the best place to go because ships were leaving for the Caribbean and for different countries with all Jewish and non-Jewish people that fled away from the war zone.
When you were in France, did you encounter the French people, and how did they treat you while you were in France?
While we're in France, since everybody thought that we were Christians, we had to go to church. And we did that. My father made sure that we all went to church and that nobody knew that we were Jewish.
What did you know about what was happening to Jews in other places?
I do not know what was going on. There was no.
And so then, did you get to Portugal?
Yes, we did get to Portugal, and we got to Lisbon. And in Lisbon, they told us, again, that the Dutch government had an office over there. They took our name, and they told us to go to a small hotel very close in Playa das Machances, which is very close to Lisbon, and stay there until there would be a ship available to go somewhere in the Caribbean. It could have been any place, because all these people, they came from Belgium, they came from France, they came from Germany. They were from all over Europe.
But these were people that were surviving being arrested.
That's right, exactly. And so we were there for, I would say, maybe 30 days, and we got a message that there was a ship called the Nyassa that would take us to Curacao, and we had to get there immediately, and it was a ship that was built in Germany, and it was it was probably about, 30, 40 years old, that ship. And hundreds of people had to go on that thing, and it took us to Suriname, near Venezuela.
You were in Portugal for 30 days.
About
So what did you do on a daily basis?
play on the beach. It was on the water over there. And just wait
And where did you get food? And who?
in that little hotel. Yes,
So you had enough money to
to take care of that.
take
Yeah.
care of
Yes,
yourselves.
yes.
Okay, so now you're in Suriname, and what happened?
In Suriname, we all had to get off that ship. And the German U-boats were over there controlling the whole Caribbean. And they were shooting at the ship. And the ship had a couple of holes. So they were trying to get that ship down. They threw me overboard. I didn't know how to swim, but I made it. My brother made it. We made it into Suriname. But there was another problem in Suriname because these people didn't know who we were. And they called us that we were Germans and that we were Nazis. And they told us, you're Jewish and you're a Nazi, and what are you doing in our country? And it was pretty dangerous for us, so we could not go on the streets. So first they had to teach these people that we were okay. But it was Dutch territory. So my father automatically had to go back in uniform, and he then was part of the Dutch India military force, and they made him sergeant or something like that.
What happened to Sally Nowak?
Sally had to escape himself and made it to England. And he also came once to visit us in Portugal. But they were looking for him too, so he had to go in hiding.
Did he survive the war?
Yes, he did. Yes,
What
he
did he
did.
do with his life after the war?
He was a merchant in carpets. He was a Persian rugs and stuff like that. He had a store.
Did you keep in touch with him?
Yes, always did. I saw him very often, and I'm still very much in contact with his daughter. I speak to Irene on a weekly basis. Lovely people.
Irene's full name?
Irene Hatter. It's Lady Irene Hatter, and she lives in England.
Spell her last name?
Hatter.
So now what happened with your father in the Dutch India military?
He got called in by the consulate in New York that he had to travel to London, England, because the Dutch Queen escaped the Netherlands and went to live in London. And once the Queen is not there, they cannot take, just like chess, you cannot take over the country. So the whole government, Dutch government, was in London, and they wanted my father over there.
What year was that?
That was in 1943.
So the World War II is still
Still
going
going.
strong.
So my father left us in Suriname. In Suriname, I had to go to school, but the school I went to, I was one of the youngest, and the oldest was like 17 years, so we were all in one class learning nothing. And it was interesting if you think about it. So my father had to go to New York. When he got to New York, to the embassy, he saw someone that he knew. He went to the same synagogue with. And the guy told him, you're going nowhere, you're going to stay right here in New York. So then my father was able to get my mother and my brother and myself to the United States in 1943 in New York. But then I had to go to school in New York. However, the problem was that I didn't speak any English. So not only that, but the embassy of the Dutch is in Washington, and they wanted my father to be the military attaché in wartime, and so we had to move to Washington. So we went to Washington. I still don't, at that time I probably spoke a couple of words in English, but so in 1945, right after the World War was over, my mother and my brother and myself were the first people to go back to the Netherlands on a ship, the Parramatta, to go back to the Netherlands and to so-called normal life. My father still had to stay in the embassy. While he was there, he had very much to do with the American forces. And the Americans arrested the guy in Germany that stole the factory of my grandfather. And they brought him to Amsterdam, and they put him in jail over there.
What was his name? Do you recall?
No, I do not know. I do not know.
How did you feel about staying in the United States while the war was still raging?
Well, there was so much going on for us that you have no time to think.
How did you feel about going back to the Netherlands, knowing that
Almost everybody wasn't there. We didn't know. We knew something. My father did tell us something because he saw the list of people that were killed in concentration camps. He had the opportunity to get all these lists and see that. So he knew that there was a lot of relatives that weren't there anymore.
what was your impression of the United States?
I had a very good feeling over there. Very calm, very nice. The only thing that happened is, and what I remember vividly, that a little plane flew in the skyscraper in the, what do you call it, in New York, the Empire State Building. And he flew in on the 74th floor, I believe. And there was a little plane sticking out of a window. It was around the corner of the place where I was staying with my mother and my brother.
So how did you get back to Amsterdam, did you say?
On a boat.
What was the name of the boat?
Parramatta.
Can you spell it?
P-A-R-A-M-A-T-A. Parramatta, yeah.
What did you find once you went back to the Netherlands and to Amsterdam specifically?
Well, we were very busy because when we got to Amsterdam, so many people gave us packages and boxes and whatever for relatives that they hoped would still be there with clothing and things that the police force in Amsterdam had to have a couple of police officers in front of the door where my grandmother was back and living, that nothing would be stolen, and my mother had to try and get all these packages to people that didn't have anything. The war was just over.
Where did you go? Did you go back to your original apartment?
No, there were other
Because?
people living over there.
And what happened?
And so my grandmother had a room, and we stayed in one of her rooms. And the rest of the family wasn't there anymore. Everybody was gone.
And you did say you were bar mitzvahed in 1949.
Yes,
So who was the rabbi who bar mitzvahed you?
Schuster.
So he was still alive.
Yes.
And education?
Well, then the real problem started because the first thing that happened to me that somebody called me a dirty Jew, a little boy. So I picked him up and threw him in a canal, and I didn't want to let him out of the water anymore, so I stood on his hands. And then I had a fight with the teacher, and things from bad to worse, and it really was a big problem, and that's when I had to see psychologists and children's. So I went to this professor in Groningen, a lady professor for children, and they did this Rorschach test with me. And so she showed me this book, and I had to look at these paintings in the book, what I would see. And I said, well, I see a butterfly. Very good. So she showed me the next page, and I looked at it, and I said, well, that's another butterfly. So it ended up 5 pages because I only saw butterflies, and so that didn't work for me. And so my parents really didn't know what to do with me anymore. I had to go to a place where only children were, and also that didn't work. So when I was 14, right after my bar mitzvah, they told my father, it's better that you put him to work in your factory and let him do something over there to so maybe he'll start doing better.
So he did get the factory back,
Yes,
and he was able to continue.
yes.
What did he manufacture?
Underwear, usually, yes.
And
Ladies and
all
gentlemen.
the same employees were there, or no?
Yes, they made sure that the equipment was still there. So they were able to restart the factory, yes.
And then, go ahead, what happened to your life then?
And so my life, I must have had interest in cars because during the World War II, the employees had hidden 2 cars somewhere in the factory, and they took them after the World War. There were 2 cars. So when I started working over there, I was able to get one of these cars started and drove it right through the factory and went on the brakes. So I got into a very bad situation with my father because it's not normal to see the brake of a car in the middle of a factory. In any case, I had to go on the road when I was 18 and sell the products that they were manufacturing.
And how long did you work for your father?
Well, the problem is that I worked for him, and then when I got married, very, very young. I was very young when I got married. I had a girlfriend, and her father passed away. They were Jewish people from Germany, and they were living in Amsterdam. They came from the eastern part of Germany, and they fled away for the Germans. And they were all incarcerated. And the husband passed away, and I was always very good with the daughter, so I married her when I was 21, and that was a marriage of nothing. We did have a child after 3 years. We had a daughter,
What's her name?
Yvette. But I do not have contact.
How did the Dutch government treat you when you returned?
When we returned, the Dutch government was okay, but nothing special. No.
And so what else did you do? What other occupations did you have?
When my father decided to sell that hole, he bought my aunt out because she was still there, his sister. And so he then arranged with the bank to pay her in her portion, and he was the only owner. And then later he decided he didn't want to do this anymore, and he sold it to a company for next to nothing. The plant is still there and is owned by Ford Motor Company. It's their headquarters in Western Europe, still existing today. And so he then had all the money, and
Is that when your mother and father got divorced?
yes, he did have a relationship with a lady, not in the Netherlands. And I have a sister living a half-sister, Nicole, living in Germany now.
What's her name?
Nicole. Nicole is 55, 56. And she's doing well, and we have a good contact, and she's a lovely sister.
What was your first wife's name?
Marion Beyer, Beyer.
And from Yvette, do you have any grandchildren?
I have 8 grandsons.
Can you tell me anything about them?
My daughter didn't want to have any more contact with me because she wanted to live her life. She's very well educated. She wanted to have children, and she, as I said, she has 7 boys. I've had contact with a few of them.
Where does she live?
She still lives in Amsterdam, and the boys are all grown. One of them lives in Canada, and I have heard that he is making movies. He's an operator of and they won an Oscar with a movie not too long ago. He seems to, I couldn't tell you, but he lives in Canada, and I don't have contact.
What other occupations have you had during your lifetime?
Well, I raced cars, and I sold sweaters because when my father stopped his business, somebody told me that I had to go to Italy because that was where the fashion was. And I went to Italy, and I represented a couple of smaller manufacturers. And I didn't speak any Italian, but I knocked on a couple of doors in a small town of Carpi, near the city of Bologna. And I knocked on one house, and an older gentleman says, "Wait one moment, my son," or my whatever, his daughter's son, speaks German. So this guy shows up, and I ask him if he says, "I don't speak a word." We became friends, and I sold his merchandise in the Netherlands and in Germany. And it's funny you ask me this right now. Last week, I had his daughter on the phone. I was in the house when the daughter was born, so I know Manuela really well. And she told me that Franco, and he is 93 years old, is not doing well. He's in the hospital, and they think he's not going to make it. And I told her I would like to try to see him this November. And she went to the hospital and made a video when she told him, and he started singing when he heard last week, a couple of days ago, that I will be in Italy hopefully soon, if my health is holding up, and I hope to see him then. I did that for a while until I thought it'd be better for me to come to the United States.
How long were you in the Netherlands after you could return?
I was 45 years of age when I decided I wanted to go somewhere else. Anti-Semitism, I didn't want to go through this again in my life. I was divorced. I just wanted to get away completely.
So you were experiencing anti-Semitism?
Absolutely.
After the war?
Absolutely.
And how did you experience that?
The way people talk to you.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, they just that they hate Jews. It's a very simple thing. If somebody tells you I don't like Jews are no good. We had all these wars for Jews, and every time it's the same thing. And they're capitalists, and
So how did you feel about that?
very bad. And that's why I said there's only two things I can do. I can go either to Israel or I want to go to the United States. But I didn't know what to do in the United States, so I came over here to the United States and looked around what was a good thing for me to do. And this is 45 years ago. And I did a little market research, and I said to myself, the thing they don't have real good is bread. They only eat Wonder Bread here in the United States, and that is the thing to do. So I came back to, and I met a Dutch guy who was in, he had to do with bakery stores. And he told me, what you want to do is a very good idea, Herman. So I went back to Amsterdam, went to the best baker in town and told him, can I work for you without getting money? So I got myself a job again, going on the road and selling curtains. And would do that at daytime, and at nighttime at 11 o'clock, I would start in the bakery every day. And I did that for about 8-9 months. And I went also to school and learned how to make desserts, a pastry chef. So I was ready to go. I had a couple of bucks until I got a phone call from a friend of mine out of Belgium. He says, Herman, are you crazy? What's wrong with you? He says, you are now 45 and you want to get up every night and you want to carry these bags off and work nighttime and sleep at daytime. He says, I would like to. He was the son-in-law of the president of the Antwerp, Belgium Diamond Exchange. He says, a partner of me and myself, we want to open up a place in Los Angeles. It's a wholesaler, and we want you to run the operation. I said, but I don't know nothing about diamonds. It's been in my family, in my grandparents, but I know nothing. He says, you got to come to Belgium every day, and you got to learn it, and you have to become a gemologist and all that stuff. And so he convinced me to do this instead of the bread. If I would have done the bread, I would have been a multimillionaire today, but I did not. I opened up in Los Angeles and did very well. I bought out my partners, and
How long were you in California?
I was in California about, I'm here now, 33, 35, about 8 years.
And did you remarry again?
Yes, I did.
Tell me.
I got remarried a few times. It's something I'm not so proud of, but I am very good today. But I think, I really do think that has to do with whatever happened to me as a child.
And your current wife, what's her name?
Karen Veder. She used to be a flight attendant. But before Karen, I divorced Karen. I married somebody else. She's a very dear friend of mine today. She has a son, and he's my stepson. They're very good people. But then I divorced her and remarried Karen for the second time.
And what is her maiden name?
Butterworth. She became Jewish, and we're living in Florida now.
How often do you speak about your wartime experiences?
Lately, a lot. A lot. I wake up with dreams about it. I have a pension in the Netherlands because I'm a Holocaust survivor, and this month I'm going to have a doctor that's going to come from the Netherlands to visit me. Why he wants to visit me, I have no idea. I have wonderful doctors here that haven't cured me, but that I'm able to live. I'm a severe heart patient. I almost died a couple of months ago, but they got me back on track. And right now I'm doing, thank God, very well.
How would you say your faith in God and people in general were affected by what you experienced as a youngster?
I do not understand why God that I believe in would do things like this, and that these kind of things could happen in the world. Because the world has not changed. If we watch TV and we see the nonsense that's going on a daily basis, and people have nothing else to do than the same thing over and over and over.
So in lieu of that, in face of that, what's your feeling about European continent? Germany, France, Netherlands, Belgium, Holland?
Nothing has changed. It's all the same, maybe worse right now than when I lived there.
How do you think we should respond to genocide, human rights?
It's unbelievable, the things that go on in the world. If it is not in Africa, it is somewhere else. It is nonstop. And people in the different countries that are in government. They only there to, as far as I can think, is there for the money, and that's the only thing that's important to them, and nothing else. And they don't look how many people are getting killed or not killed.
Are you optimistic at all about the future of the United States?
Sometimes, and this is a very interesting question, sometimes I don't understand why I moved over here. Why? Now you see over here, again, things that are not so great. There is a lot of anti-Semitism going on that I realize, but I'm not a politician, and I don't want to be a politician.
What do you think we can do?
Step back and re-evaluate what is life all about. Instead,
We can, but what about the general public?
unfortunately, we the whole day are watching our cell phones, getting all this information. It's massive information that we're getting from all over the place, and we have 3 seconds to respond to it, and the world has changed tremendously, according to me, over the last, 30, 40 years. But I think that's happened to everybody, that they're getting older, that they look back and say, my goodness, what's going on over here in the world? It's not to be very optimistic, unfortunately. It's very negative.
You did say that you feel that you still have some PTSD,
Yes.
but other than the PTSD, how have your experiences affected you in the way you've lived your life?
Tremendously. Tremendously. Under normal circumstances, I would not be sitting right here now and doing this interview. I don't want to be promoting any party. I just want people to be happy with their life, with their children, and having a good time. Yes, we all have to work to accomplish something, but the whole rest is all such nonsense, wasting time and energy, I call it.
So I want to thank you for doing this interview and ask you, what message would you like to leave, perhaps for your wife, even though you don't have contact with your grandchildren, your daughter? What message would you like to leave? Perhaps they will see this interview.
Well, I want the Veders that are still, there's a lot of Veders living in Canada. There's a lot of them in Europe. I'm the oldest one today. I want the Veders to be proud being a Veder, because their great-grandparents were very good people. They're very important people in Amsterdam for the Jewish people, the Jewish congregation of Amsterdam. My grandfather used to be meeting on a yearly basis with the Queen of the Netherlands. She would visit the synagogue once a year. And I want to put these Veders back where and how it all happened about 100 years ago. And I want them to be proud about this and show them our interview and say, well, Uncle Herman, you did a good job.
Yes, you did.
And I wanted to also say something to Dr. Ellie Levine, my heart specialist, Dr. Schechter, my second heart specialist, Dr. Vivas, my third heart specialist. I have 3. My regular doctor, Dr. Zaray, here in Delray Beach. I want to thank them for keeping me alive. Guys, you're doing a wonderful job for me. Thank you so much. And I wanted to thank you, Barbara. I want to thank the Shoah Foundation for the time they gave me to express myself as good as I can. And I wish everyone the best. And thank you again.
I say thank you, and because we're 3 days from the holiday, Lashana Tova.
Shana Tova to you and your family.
Thank you.
Ooh.
We can do pictures and candlesticks.
Yeah, so I got some stuff now.
You have pictures?
Yes, I do.
You want to start with those?
Hmm. You want me to come and sit over there? Or?
You have a lot of pictures?
I have a few. A few things, and maybe you say, well, that's not important. I have over here.
I'm going to clamp your pictures onto here, and then I'm going to photograph them.
Okay, so this is a letter
Okay.
from the Royal Netherlands Indies Army where they tell my father to go back to the Netherlands.
I don't know if it'll photograph, it's very light.
Very light paper. I think it will show up.
Okay. I have,
Show me what you have, and I'll tell you
Okay.
if you're using.
okay, well, you'll be very careful with this. This is this picture from my grandfather,
Yes,
and this is Queen Wilhelmina.
okay.
And this is that Seder dish.
You didn't tell me anything about a Seder.
Oh, no. Okay, this is in the museum in Amsterdam.
Okay,
So she,
I'm gonna just take it out as a photo.
yeah, okay. So when she came to visit him,
This is very fragile. I'd like to just hand that back to
Yeah,
you,
okay.
so I don't.
Oh, did you photograph it?
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
but we don't know what it was.
So this, when she came
You
to,
want to go back to it? No, I'm talking.
look at this. This picture is from 1924.
Okay.
When she came to visit the Jews in Amsterdam, she had this Seder dish made in Limoges.
Okay, well, we're gonna talk about it
Okay.
when he photographs it.
Can you take this? Be careful. That thing has to go to a museum.
Okay, well, he's gonna photograph it. Oh, you're doing it.
No, like that one?
No. Yeah, that's better.
Oh, yeah, I got a few. Okay.
Oh, go ahead and tell me about the picture that we're showing on camera. Tell me about that picture.
Okay, so this is the Queen of the Netherlands visiting the Jews in Amsterdam in 1928. There's my grandfather over there saying goodbye to her. This
Is he the one standing up?
yeah, he's the one without a hat on, next to the
This guy?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay. And who else is in the picture?
Princess Juliana, who later became Queen Juliana.
Okay. Any other people?
That is, this is Prince William. He was the husband of Wilhelmina.
Thank you.
I have something very interesting for you over here. I just had it in my hands. Oh yeah.
I'm going to talk about the Seder plate first.
Okay. When the Queen came to visit,
Oh, wait. Plate goes like that.
when the Queen came to visit, my grandfather, he gave her this Seder dish as a gift. It was specially made in France. It's now in the Jewish Museum in Amsterdam.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is something else. Remember that
Yeah, you showed me.
this I showed you?
Yeah.
No, I found that later. This is the bridge the Germans were on, and this is the water we had to go through.
Okay.
Okay, so this picture is the river where we had to walk through at nighttime, and the bridge where the Germans would shoot you if they saw you passing to the other side in the river Cher in France.
And you had to wait for the cigarette
Yes.
signal.
That's correct.
Thank you.
This is a picture.
Hold on.
This is the picture that took us from that ship in 1942, from Lisbon to Suriname,
And the name of the ship is?
Nyassa.
Nyassa.
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you have any pictures of your wife or children?
Huh?
Your mother or your father?
Just a moment. I hope I have them here. Yep. This is the factory in Amsterdam.
And tell me about this picture.
This is the factory the Germans stole from my grandfather in Amsterdam.
What was the address of the factory?
It was in Amsteldijk, Amsteldijk. It's still existing.
Thank you.
This is my parents and me.
When was this picture taken?
This must have been taken, I don't know.
About how old are you in this picture?
I don't know, maybe 13, maybe by mitzvah, something like that. Huh?
Thank you. And your mother and father's name again?
My mother, Lucy, Lucretia, and my father, Alexander, Henry.
Thank you.
This is taken at the same time.
You
It's
and
my
your-
brother and me. This is again also same time. This is my brother and myself.
Abraham, Bob, and Herman.
And Herman, yeah.
Thank you.
And this is when I was 16 years old.
When you were 16 years
Yeah,
old?
I
Is
was-
this you?
Yeah.
And this picture, Mr. Veder, is taken,
This is Dam Square in Amsterdam. My mother, niece of hers, and her child. Her child is now 70 years of age.
what was her niece's name, do we know?
Don't recall. Right now, I don't recall.
That's okay.
One of my races that I won.
So this picture is a picture of what?
Of a European championship in Zandvoort, the Netherlands, where I made it being champion of the Netherlands again.
1967 or?
That's right.
1967.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hang on. Okay.
That's it.
That's it. Was that enough?
Perfect.
Hmm?
He's giving you all this back. You can put them back
Oh,
in
yeah, I will.
later and into the sleeves.
Oh, definitely.
Is this what I asked you to write down? Is that mine? No, that's
No,
yours.
this is mine.
Okay.
How did that go?
You did very well. How would you like to have a head of hair like this?
I would just like to have a head of hair. I'll take any way.
You need a new foot first.
How bad was I? Barbara, how bad was it?
Oh, you were
What
wonderful.
about the candlestick holders?
Oh, yeah, we forgot the candlesticks. Oh,
Yeah, they were my grandfather's. How he got them, I don't know. No. What do you want to do with them?
Well, they're just gonna photograph.
Yeah, I guess so. So what are you going to do with all the names that I gave you?
It's not for me, it's for research.
Is it for research? So you, are they,
You'll get a copy of the interview. Oh, you got one more to go? You hold them. Here, right here.
Want to talk about them?
You want to say something about the
Yes.
candlestick?
These are the Shabbat candlesticks of my grandparents. These must be probably 150 years old, something like that.
were
And they survived the war, and who had them and how they got back, I couldn't tell you.
And they were used on every Shabbat?
Every Shabbat.
Thank
Beautiful, huh?
you. Beautiful.
Huh? Yeah, they are. You have no clue how I'll tell you how I got these.
You said you didn't have a clue.
Well, I know how I got it. My father got in debt. And he had an attorney he didn't pay.
Oh, goodness.
And so then he passed away. Then I found out this attorney had all that silver because he gave him all. I had to buy everything. So I bought it.